All right, let's get personal. I'm gonna confess to a mistake in thinking that I've made so that you can learn how to deal with your own body and what some of the pitfalls are. I'm gonna talk about how I have discovered stretching is not working for parts of my body and what I was missing in a previous video where I talked about how to fix some of my issues with a tight lower back, lats, and shoulder stuff. So if you've ever had issues with your low back, your shoulder, or anything like that, you're gonna wanna stay tuned. I'm gonna talk about the mistakes you might make and how to fix them. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. So in a previous video, I talked about how when I go surfing, I'm paddling, and then in the days that follow, I end up with a lot of tightness in my lats, my ribs, my low back, and in my shoulders. And I talked about how stretching just didn't really seem to do it for me. I couldn't get things to open up, and I started using bands to strengthen some muscles that actually felt like they were just a little bit too weak. And I showed a bunch of different examples, and I talked about how you can even apply that to your hamstrings. If you haven't watched that video, I will link to it in the description box. Go watch it after we're done with this video. I promise if you finish this video, it's gonna help you get more out of that previous video, so don't click away just yet. What I mentioned in that video is you need to think about strength as a cure for muscles that feel tight. Some muscles, when they atrophy too much, will just feel stiff and tight all the time, even if they actually can lengthen to long positions. And I still stand by that statement. But what I want to share with you today is how I was missing something. I want to share the blind spot, the mistake I was making that was causing me to miss a really obvious issue that I could fix. So with all this rib, lat, low back, and rib cage stiffness and just awfulness, I was talking about using bands in different directions to try to strengthen those muscles in a lengthened position. But what I didn't talk about and what I was missing was actually trying to make sure that you strengthen all the muscles that might be related to this. And that's where I really missed a key point that can help you with your shoulder, your back, your hips, whatever. To understand this, you need to see the eventual solution, and then we'll work back so you understand how I was screwing things up. What I discovered while working with my body one day was if I actually work on this motion, I actually greatly improve the range of motion and the freedom I feel in all those tight areas. The lats, the ribs, the low back, everything started feeling better when I started working on this with lightweight, being real slow and controlled, using a free weight, and also using the bands in different configurations. I just noticed like, oh my God, it just feels so much better. Now this was a blind spot because I was stuck in this thinking that I had to only look at the muscles that were uncomfortable and the muscles that felt most stretched when I went into certain positions. The reality is sometimes you also need to think more globally and think about how related muscles might be yanking things out of place or just making you feel not so good. Now you might be thinking, oh, do I have to have like a degree in anatomy or anatomics? The answer is no. In fact, the easier thing you can do as just a normal human who doesn't have a skeleton in their den is to think about what activities actually trigger your discomforts and then do the reverse. So let's say I'm surfing, I'm paddling. What's the motion that I'm constantly doing? Well, I'm getting peak resistance from here to here, right? I'm getting all this muscle activation from there to there in that limited range of motion. So it's here, right? It's this over and over again. That's going to make the muscles that create that motion stronger. It's going to train them to keep firing. That's probably going to make me a little unbalanced if I don't do the opposite. It's like saying, I'm just gonna do bicep curls nonstop every day for the next couple decades. What's gonna happen? I'm gonna be unbalanced. These muscles will be too strong relative to these muscles. So then the question is, how do I fix that situation? And the answer is actually simple. If it's the elbow and I'm constantly flexing it against resistance, I also need to give it some resistance to extension so that the opposing muscles can balance things out. And if I'm paddling like this, I need to also think about how to get resistance going this way, right? I need resistance that way. And since I'm not gonna go surfing in reverse, then I need to figure out a way to resist this motion, and that's actually really simple. And while I'm telling you about what surfing does to my body, I'm curious to know what sport or hobby you're engaged in and what it's doing to your body. What have you noticed and how are you addressing it? Drop me a comment down below. I just take a light weight. At first I started with 1 pound and then I had this motion, shoulder flexion, right? Just trying to reach up, and I tried different angles. So not only did I do it right up alongside my head, but I also did it out to the side and way out to the side, over here, whatever. I just tried to find the weakest position I could find, and then breathe, come on, oh, come on, come on. And then hold it there, get it used to being in that position, because I'm constantly doing this, telling these muscles just, you know, whatever, just go along for the ride. What I really want is some of those muscles to work. I want some of the lower traps to work, to hold that shoulder blade in that position so that it can do the opposite of this. Another way to counteract the imbalances I get from constant paddling is to work on shoulder external rotation. So I can just be like this and hold on to some light weights and do shoulder external rotation, lifting my hands up. And the more horizontal I get, the more difficult it's going to be at that top position for my shoulder muscles. And I can also set this up different ways using bands, outside, inside, wherever, with an anchor point, and forcing myself to do shoulder external rotation. The advantage of setting up with bands is that I can also adjust how I'm holding the rest of my body. So I can kneel down and do something like this and make sure that I'm not overusing my lower back muscles to create extension while I'm pulling. Because if I'm just leaning up against something and doing it like this, I might end up using my spinal muscles to do more extension, which is something that I already do enough of when I'm surfing. So if I take the band and I'm down here, I can go here, have the hips flexed. I can even round my lower back and round my spine a little bit more, and then really focus on just getting shoulder external rotation while the spinal muscles are just kept out of it and are not doing their normal surfing thing. Also, I can play around with the hand position so that I could be pulling like this, or like this, or like this. I can just change things up and I still get the resistance where I need it. Plus, I can also adjust how much resistance I get. So if I'm just really choked up, I can get a lot of resistance. I can fine tune that and make sure that I'm getting enough challenge, but not so much that I'm cheating and using the wrong muscles. And within a few days, things were feeling a whole lot better. So then I went surfing again. And guess what happened? I surfed, it felt great, everything was good, but the next day, I still felt okay, but the next day, I still felt okay, but I was starting to get tight. And then the next day, everything tightened up and I started going into my old routine of like trying to stretch it out and open. And then I realized, wait, I thought I solved this problem somehow. Why am I getting tight again? And then I remembered it's because I needed to train the counteracting muscles. I needed to train the reverse. I needed to train the antagonist so that things would feel normal and balanced again. And before I give you the simplest way I can think of to remember this strategy, I want to ask you to join me on Patreon. You'll find me at patreon.com/uprighthealth. I've discovered that YouTube is really trying to push towards shorts, and I kind of hate shorts. I like doing long form content, and I would really like to keep doing long form content with your support, because YouTube is trying to suck revenue and suck everything out of long form and push it to make itself a TikTok clone. I really don't like that, and it's not really sustainable. So if you like these longer form videos, please consider joining me on Patreon at patreon.com/uprighthealth, where I will be posting exclusive content and early releases and other good stuff like that. Please find me there. Thank you so much. And if you don't want to do that, then just subscribe to the channel, and we'll pray that YouTube sees the light. So to deal with discomfort that's caused by muscles, which is most of them unless you have some weird rare situation or disease, you should remember that you have stretch, smash, and strengthen at your disposal. So if you have some muscles that are just don't feel good, stretch, smash, strengthen. And the fourth thing is BM, and I don't mean bowel movement, even though those are very important. I mean balanced movement. You want to make sure that you're balancing out movements. That way you don't have to get caught in all the anatomical terminology. You just need to think about whether you're doing things in a balanced way. If you're playing a sport where you're constantly loading on one leg, you should think about how you're going to balance that out. Make sure that if you're playing a sport where you're always twisting in the same way on one leg and you're never doing the same on the other, you got to balance that out. If you're playing a sport where you are always going overhead with one arm and twisting in one direction, you're going to think about how to balance the movement for your whole body. Because if you're just doing the same thing over and over again, you will not be balanced. So stretch, smash, strengthen, and get some good BMs. And as soon as you apply this final BM, I want you to drop me a comment and let me know how it goes. What did you discover? What did you learn? How is it applying to you? Please leave a comment down below. If you're looking for a program to help your body feel better, go to uprighthealth.com/DIY to find a program that'll work for you. Please consider joining me on Patreon to support more videos like this, or use the donate links and options you'll find in the description box. Hey, I want to take a moment to highlight an awesome message I got from one of my Patreon subscribers, Josh Isaacs, and he says, "I just wanted to say a deep thank you, Matt. I have followed your content for the better part of 2 years and I've learned an incredible amount about anatomy and good body health and movement. I've suffered from hunchback posture from a lifetime of playing computer games, and your intuitive teachings have helped me start to address this. I have even passed on your knowledge to my sedentary 72-year-old mother, Atrophy Aches, and she is now more active too. And at times when I have felt overwhelmed by the constant struggle to make progress, you have released content speaking to this too. Thank you for the honest and grounded and wise advice. I don't see anywhere else on the internet teaching these techniques and mindsets. P.S. I am reading the book Move Your DNA, and it is brilliant. Greetings from South Africa." I'm thrilled to be a positive impact in your life and the life of other viewers, so thank you very, 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 very much for that message. Josh sent me that message via Patreon, and if you want to become a patron too, you can go to patreon.com/uprighthealth, and that's where you'll find me. For more free videos to help you do simple human stuff, check these videos out here. Subscribe, 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 like, share, comment, and as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't. Every time